everyone. Good evening, or of course morning, afternoon, middle of the night, whatever time it is where you are signing in and joining us from. It is wonderful to see you doing so. I think you've made a very wise choice choosing to join us and to engage with this hugely important subject. And I'm delighted, as always, to welcome you on behalf of the How To Academy and to have this chance to discuss, as I say, what is perhaps one of the most compelling issues of our age, which is how to survive, perhaps thrive in a digital and increasingly automated world, and how to stay in control to gain a clearer understanding of AI, of algorithms, of our smartphones and social media apps. All of this and much, much more is found within the pages of the book that has inspired this event, which is here in my screen. We'll talk later about what you might be noticing about this cover: How to Stay Smart in a Smart World, Why Human Intelligence Still Beats Algorithms. And I am so delighted that we have with us the book's author, a true expert in the field, to guide us through what can often seem like a very murky and overwhelming and increasingly complex world. He is the director of the Harding Center for Risk Literacy at the University of Potsdam and partner of Simply Rational, the Institute for Decisions. He's former director of the Center for Adaptive Behaviour and Cognition at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development and a former professor of psychology at the University of Chicago. He's also author of several other books, including Risk Savvy and Reckoning with Risk. So as I say, we are in very, very good hands. There's a lot to ask of him. I'm sure you will have many questions too. So please do put those into the chat box and we'll get through as many as possible. Gerd, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
I'm happy to be with you.
Perhaps I could just start by asking what your driving motivation was for writing this book. Would you say that first and foremost, it's a warning? And if so, who to?
It is, if it's a warning to stay alert and to not stop thinking. So the better the technology is, the less reason to lean back and the more reason to think and get risk savvy. So
perhaps before we go into this any further, I'm going to ask you to explain this cover, which initially, and people can see, this is not my blurred screen in case they haven't had their copy. Initially, when it arrived, I thought perhaps I had a sort of initial, a slightly misshapen copy. But please, could you explain why that is an intentional device on the front cover?
The idea is that although we think that we live in a highly developed technological world, few of us actually understand the risks. So that's the blurry part. And the goal of the book is to get rid of the blur, and the one word smart is clear. So that's what it signals. And the subtitle signals that the usual story that soon AI will do everything we can, and we basically will be replaced by something like a super intelligence, is not correct. AI can do some things, and human can do other things. And we are being oversold by marketing hype.
So that is, of course, the central premise of the book, which you keep coming back to, is the things to recognize, importantly, the things that AI can do well and the things that it can't, and not to be fooled by the idea that it can do everything better than us. Could you explain the term for those who don't know, and apologies for those who do, but could you explain technological paternalism, which is where you say we are, and something we should be wary of and do not wish to be?
So paternalism is the idea that some people are above others. So like the father above a child, where that term comes from. And in history, it has been an elite of noble people, or those who were chosen by God, or just rich. And other things. And those who have been taken care were historically women, children, the poor, and so on. The 20th century has ended lots of paternalism, but the 21st one has brought a new kind of paternalism back. This is now paternalism by AI, by algorithms. And the paternalism basically tells us that AI knows us better. Google knows us better than us. AI can do everything better, or will soon, and we should surrender and follow. So Eric Schmidt, for instance, Google's former Eric Schmidt, explained that his vision is that every morning we get up and ask Google, what should we do today and the rest of our lives? That's the kind of new technological paternalism. And I think this book is written against this idea. First, it is incorrect. And second, it's dangerous. And it's anti-democratic.
So it's dangerous and it's incorrect. But you also say that what we don't need is the antithesis, which is a technophobic panic. Yeah. So how do we get that right? Because what you describe makes many of us, myself included, feel worried and a sense of panic about an automated future where we don't have any control.
Yeah, no, that's an important point. So we couldn't do this online interview without digital technology. I'm personally much in favor of digital technology. But the point is, we need to understand what it can do and what it cannot do. So the book has basically three general arguments. One is AI, meaning complex algorithms or neural networks, is better than humans in situations which are stable. For instance, the big successes are in chess, in Go, in games that have set rules. While humans have evolved to deal with uncertainty, with unstable situations, such as other humans, but one never knows what's happening. So that's the stable world principle. And it explains why chess can beat us humans, so why AI can beat us in chess, but cannot find the best romantic partner.
So the main thing to distinguish there is that humans have emotions. Is that right? And AI and machines, despite what some may say, cannot have that emotional, empathetic understanding of a situation.
Humans have a number of tools, emotions. We trust others, and we have simple rules like heuristics, and we have judgments and intuition. None of this would be needed in, for instance, in a well-defined world where everything is certain. And that's why in chess and Go, a machine does much better than we. So the second principle of the book is that the stable world that AI needs changes us. So AI systems are not just an assistant that helps us, like Alexa, or online dating, but they actually change us. So the best way we can make use of AI is by becoming more predictable, and also our world making it more predictable. So that's the second point. And the third point is that given this potential for changing, and that autocratic systems can exploit the potentials of AI at best for surveillance and behavior control and behavior change. So this is just an important way to understand what's going on. And rather than just blindly enjoying and waiting that Alexa turns eventually into super intelligence that tells us everything we should do tomorrow, when we should become children, whom to marry, and so on.
Can I come back then to something that, I mean, you talk about the stable world principle, as you say, there are scenarios in a stable world in which algorithms and AI are a good thing. That's where they function, and we should welcome that. But they don't have the emotional capability. And you also say that common sense is a huge challenge to those in the business of developing AI.
So one way to understand this is, in a well-defined, stable world, like a game, you don't need emotions. You don't, in order to win. You may need emotions because you're angry afterwards when you have lost. But you don't need everything that human intelligence, intuition, and common sense is. And common sense is the hardest thing for AI. Intuition is far away. We do not know how to program a deep neural network so that it gets intuition. And the intuition that for instance, a 7-month-old child has an intuitive physics. So it knows when an object, like a toy, disappears behind a screen, it's still there, and it will come out on the other side. A deep neural network that wins in chess has no such intuition. It doesn't know. The object is gone. And that's a problem if one tries to build autonomous cars that understand that a bicyclist behind a truck will appear on the other side.
And is it for that reason that when you go on to talk about self-driving cars, something that many people thought or continually talk about as being in the not too distant future, you feel quite safe in saying that they are unlikely to be our future, in spite of quotes from the like of Elon Musk?
Yeah, Elon Musk announces every year that we will have so-called level 5 self-driving cars the next year. And at some point he will probably stop. So here the stable world principle applies to build a car that without a human driver who pays attention can drive safely under all traffic conditions. That's so-called level 5 driving, the highest level. Self-driving cars is far out of our reach. And what will happen is something different. We will adapt to the limited possibility of the cars and rebuild our cities around, which is called level 4 cars that drive without human assistance, but only in limited areas. For instance, where there are no bicyclists, where no humans are allowed to drive, and which are also walled off of all the rest of things. And that is probably what may happen, unless we forget about the entire idea in investing in cars and go for public transport.
So you would welcome or accept and think that a smart way to deal with the future of self-driving cars, a level 4, is only to create that sort of stable environment in which it could function. But where else in human society do we have that sort of stability? Because it seems to me that everywhere we have to be aware of human sort of fallibility and indecision and vulnerability and emotion and all the things that come with humanity.
Yeah, you're right. And that's why we have intuition, why we have judgment. why we need to have trust, and why we need to check for cheating, and all these things that make us human. The vision of true technological paternalism would be a vision in which humans lose that and become really predictable, reliable. For instance, there are certain countries where social credit systems are being invented and introduced, like China, and which basically give everyone a score. And then people will adapt and do what they are asked to do and not violate the laws in order to improve their credit score. So that's a possible future, that we are basically made more predictable. And that's, for me, not a future in which I'm looking forward very much.
So what ultimately can we, people listening, will think that might sound alarming. I'm sure many of us still do in the West, and yet we feel a certain helplessness, because it is surely now tech companies who are becoming too powerful, too big to fail, and also it is in the hands of governments to make this sort of legislation. But as individuals, we feel very helpless.
Yeah. So we can do as individuals quite a lot, and also governments. For instance, so if you don't want a social credit system, then one can stop that. And in Germany, I have done a survey and asked Germans whether they would think that it's a good idea that everyone gets a social credit score. So let me explain what it is. Yeah, it is like in your country, in the UK, you have an experience score. And so everyone has a financial creditworthiness score. In the US, it's FICO. In German, it's Schufa or others. And that measures your financial trustworthiness. The social credit score measures your trustworthiness in every respect one can get hands on your data. So if you cross the street and there's a red light, points go down because there are face recognition cameras. If you visit your old parents, you get a point up, and so on. And at the end, those who have high points are rewarded. And for instance, they get quick access to medical care. And those who have low points, they're punished. For instance, in some Chinese cities, the people with low points are not allowed to purchase tickets for airplanes or to send their children to the best private schools.
So just to clarify, I'm sorry, this is at this moment happening in China. People are being watched every move, and their lives are being they rewarded or the opposite on the basis of that.
It is happening at the moment in about 40 large Chinese cities. It's a kind of experimental exercise, and which means millions of people have social credit scores. And also, as far as we know, a majority thinks it's right, because the good ones get benefits and the bad ones are punished.